here this morning. Board, as you know, we just have one agenda item that we'll be discussing this morning. I do want to also recognize that Mr. Thacker is joining us through telephone this morning. So, Mr. Thacker, glad that you're with us. Superintendent will come to you for this particular item, or, yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just would ask Mr. Brown if he would go over the status of the legal services, please.
Thank you, Superintendent. And just for the record, Mr. Thacker is out of the state, and under Attorney General opinions, being out of state on an occasional basis is good cause to appear by telephone, and we do have a quorum physically present. Board members, this is really not a school board issue, but it's unfortunate that we have to get you involved. It's a business issue involving myself and my relationship with my former law firm.
Larry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you speak up just, I can barely hear you.
Is that better if I speak directly into the mic that way?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where it's picking it up. That was about the same. I don't know where the pickup is for the phone.
They're making an adjustment. Okay, I don't want to scream and you know be too loud, but can you hear it?
That's good. I can hear you. I don't know what you did different, but I can seem to hear you better now.
Mr. Muniz moved you closer.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome, sir.
He's sitting in his lap.
Not quite. No, not quite. So very briefly, because I know we're all busy, and this is, I want to minimize the disruption to the district, and I apologize to the extent this has caused any disruption. But briefly, I had an opportunity arise to join a larger law firm as a shareholder. The law firm is Greenspoon Martyr, and they have offices throughout the state and a couple of offices outside of Florida. They're not a Greenberg Traurig size firm. They're not 1,000 lawyers, but they're 170 lawyers, and very entrepreneurial, very smart lawyers. One of the partners has been a friend of mine for a number of years. And I have brought with me, and I resigned from my former law firm yesterday, and I've brought with me to the new firm a number of attorneys who've been working on school board matters. They're in the audience. Amy Pitch on the ESE 504 ADA and IDEA matters, and 2FAM is working on the medical clinic issues and other contract issues. Cherish Benedict has worked on real estate and construction matters, and Tina Garcia has been intimately involved in working on your tort cases. I think you've seen Amy and Tina in executive sessions. I don't recall that Cherish or two have been in any executive sessions. I have been the school board attorney since 1992, believe it or not, and this is my most important client. I would hope that you would come with me, but you are the client. You have a choice to make. You can either stay with the current law firm, which I presume will be renamed Garganese, Weiss, and DeGresta, or you can come to Greenspoon Martyr and let me continue and let my team continue to provide legal services to you, or you can pick a third law firm. You know, that you have any one of those options. Mr. Weishire and I discussed how best to present these options, and being mindful that you're a collegial body, he felt that it would be most appropriate, and I agree, to take advantage of the statute that allows for a special meeting on 2 days' notice, and that's why we've burdened everyone to be here this morning. I'm here to answer any questions. I will simply say this is a business issue. We felt that this was an opportunity that was too good to not take advantage of for us personally and professionally. I want to assure you that there is tremendously greater depth in this new law firm. Many paralegals, 10, 15 HR expert attorneys, multiple attorneys who are available. And I want to emphasize what is unique about this large firm, and I've had other large firms approach me before. They're always reluctant to take on governmental contracts because the hourly rates are low, and I know it's a lot of money to the public and it's a lot of money from your perspective, but from a large law firm's perspective, it's an unusual billing arrangement. It's not the $400, $450, $500 an hour type fees that the senior partners are used to charging at these, 200 plus attorney law firms. And having said that, Greenspoon Martyr is very entrepreneurial. They're accepting the contract exactly like as is. If anything, I sincerely believe the depth and the greater efficiencies and greater redundancy of expertise will result in more efficiency in the litigation and other matters, and so there's an opportunity for greater efficiency. I just wanted to assure the superintendent and the board and staff that there will be no interruption in service, there will be nothing will be dropped, and I would hope that over the years people would realize that I've had from Martha Anderson, Joe Shira, Josephine Chen, Pete Edwards, Tom Greer, all of these disparate individuals and disparate personalities have come to trust me and to realize that I just have the best interests of the district at heart, and I have navigated through some fairly interesting times, and I hope that that will be in your mind and that you would come with me to the new firm, and that's my request to you. I see that Suzanne DeGrest is in the audience, and it would be appropriate for her to have a chance to speak. I also want to emphasize, and this is because she's here, I feel like I should say, when I resigned from the firm, I specifically told them in writing that I'm being judicious in terms of the clients that I'm approaching. And I said to them in writing that I'm only approaching those clients that I generated and for whom I am currently principally responsible. And then I listed a number of the major clients that I'm leaving with them because I generated them, but attorneys in their firm have worked on them and are doing a good job, and I'm leaving them, ranging from Citizens Property Insurance to the Indian River School District to a number of other community development districts. So I wanted you to know, so you had a sense about my business approach. I am only approaching my clients for whom I am principally responsible, and I am principally responsible for this entity as a lawyer professionally. I'm happy to answer any questions. This is obviously unusual, and I can only hope that, and I can assure you, this will not happen again for another 20 or so years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Board, as Mr. Brown mentioned, he had contacted me about this and explained what the situation was. I felt it was important that we got together to talk about this so that each board member had an opportunity to ask any questions, express your thoughts or concerns, and then we take some direction. So at this point, Mr. Will, I recognize you.
Well, first off, I'm glad Suzanne is here. Suzanne worked as a school board attorney for some years, then it was handed off to Larry. I'll say this. Mr. Brown has done a very, very good job for us. I talked with him ad nauseum about this just to make sure that, we are going to be where we need to be and get what we need. I think under the current circumstances where we have decided to hire, we decided last time we met to hire someone for a superintendent search, we're going to be going down that road. I've got, that's enough for this board to tackle. We've got capable, competent legal services. Larry has done a good job for us. I'd like to see him continue doing a good job for us considering the transition we're going through. I think it's important also to have somebody in a leadership capacity that has the institutional knowledge that he brings so that when a new leader comes on board, there's not a learning curve for two people, there's only a learning curve for one, and that can be lessened. So I am, after the conversations I've had with him and just working with Larry, I'm fine with this. I'm okay with it. So if you need a motion, I'll be happy to make a motion at this point.
Well, let me ask if you can just wait for a moment.
Tim, I got some questions too. When you
Yes, sir, Ms. Thacker. I do want to recognize Suzanne as well. If you wanted to address the board, I'd certainly welcome you to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, I'm Suzanne DeGresta. I came this morning because I understood this meeting was set last minute. I understood from yesterday morning that Mr. Brown and other lawyers were leaving the law firm and that we're going to be approaching the school board about what you wish to do with your legal services. I'm here to be sure that my law firm continues to support the client and does the client's wishes. I'd just like some direction. Mr. Brown articulated the three options that basically clients have when a shareholder leaves the firm, and I just need some direction of what to do from today going forward. There's a lot of things scheduled on the books for lawyers to cover today as well as over the next several weeks. And I just need some direction so that we can be sure the school board's needs are being addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Suzanne. Clarence, I'm going to come to you at this time.
Okay. Can you hear me at all?
Yes, sir. We can hear you fine.
Okay. I've just got several questions that or concerns I have. I talked to Larry yesterday or the day before. I can't remember which it is. And I'm sorry I'm not there. I have to dial in by phone, but I appreciate y'all's indulgence. I guess, one thing I kind of thought about a lot after I talked to Larry, because it was a bit of a surprise when I talked to him, was it bothers me a little bit. We have to do this in such a rush in 2 days. I think I agree with everything Jay said. I think we've had great representation from Larry, but it's also not just been Larry. It's been a whole firm that's behind Larry. We've had Suzanne at one point was served as the main attorney on the account, so there's great backup. There's somebody at that firm who knows our business and knows what the needs and desires of Osceola County School District are. That's something that I think we just need to be cognizant of. We lose. I looked through the website of Greenspan. I did see governmental. I didn't see anything about school district work, so I'm not sure what the real backup is there to Larry. I'm also, and most of these questions are because we're doing this in such a rushed nature, I guess. And I have great respect for Larry, and as Larry said earlier in his talk, it's a business decision. And I hope you take my comments are from a business perspective too of the school district. I realize he's taken some of that staff with him. Some of that is because the work is going, and from a realistic perspective, if there's not enough work there, they need jobs. So I don't know if that's part of the if they're going with the work, or if the work were to stay at his current firm, would the work still be there? I don't know. I'm assuming the one thing I noticed in the contract, and I went back and looked at last year's contract too, is the wording of the contract in the first paragraph changed, which I found to be kind of interesting. The wording in the contract says Usher Brown and his firm currently. In the years before, it says Usher Brown, and here referred to as the attorney of law with the firm of Brown, Gargants, Weissgrass, PA. Here not to refer to the firm. So that to me should have been a red flag. If I'd have really laid the two next to each other, I would have seen that he took the name of his current firm out and replaced it with just his firm. So we kind of got the contract done, and here we are changing it a little bit. I guess quite frankly it doesn't sit quite right with me. I'm at Greenspoon's large. I'm assuming their liability insurance is large. And covers us, and if the contract is for Larry Brown, does Larry have liability? Does the firm have liability? It's kind of a question of who's looking out for who, I guess, a little bit. I'm concerned about the backup at Greenspoon, not because I've got a question of anybody at Greenspoon or who they are. I just don't know who they are. Like I say, it bugs me a little bit. We have to walk into this. I can tell you I've been through one of these at Tahoe Water, where the attorney was a member of a larger firm, not near as big as Greenspoon, but probably the size of Larry's firm as of yesterday. And he left, and we went through the same question. And it sounds like it's very easy just for, yesterday it was one firm and tomorrow it's another firm. There's a lot of stuff goes on in switching. There's a lot of pending matters. Suzanne, I think, just touched on that a little bit, on how we're going to manage those and make sure that things are not falling through the cracks. We probably have a little bit of a time period here where there may be both firms, maybe somebody's finishing something out, closing it out. I don't know, but none of those questions to me are being answered yet. And to make a decision on switching to another firm at this point, it just makes me a little uneasy. I agree with Jay. We don't need two things on our plate at this point, and I certainly don't have any issues with the work Larry has done. But I also recognize the fact that while Larry has done a great job for us, he's had a whole firm backing him up on this, and there's been a lot of people behind the scenes doing a lot of the work and carrying a lot of the water buckets too. So I just don't want to lose sight of that. And with that, when he's going to a new firm, Larry would probably tell you, I'm sure this is a very good deal for him, and I'm happy for Larry. But what are the time constraints of Larry? What are the expectations of him? My guess would be somebody didn't take Larry with the clients that he's bringing and say, we don't want you to do anything else. So if he's got a lot of business development, if he's out going to be chasing some other school board type work or governmental type work that he does, are we going to have Larry's full attention? And I think it's more important than ever for the fact of his attention, because I don't know who the backup is. Whereas I know today or yesterday, it was probably Suzanne and some others at the firm who supported him. But Suzanne's certainly a very strong attorney. I think, like I say, has worked directly with the school district before, and I have a lot of trust and faith in Suzanne. Not that I don't have that at Greenspan, I just don't know. So that's kind of my feelings on it, and just wanted to chime in and throw that out.
Great. Thank you, Clarence. And you raised some good questions, and I appreciate your insight on it. Larry, yeah, it would be appropriate for you to respond to this.
All right. I'll try to respond succinctly to each question. First of all, Greenspoon Martyr has many multiples of liability insurance, malpractice insurance. I'm thinking it's $20 million. Our current malpractice is $5 million, which is very healthy with the former firm. But I'm thinking Greenspoon Martyr is at least $20 million, and I'll provide that certificate. They're accepting the contract as is. They will be liable as a shareholder in their firm as a matter of law. They're liable for what I do as I practice law. So there will be absolutely no greater exposure to the firm, to the school district on the malpractice insurance side. I can assure you of that. And in fact, you'll have much deeper coverage. Secondly, Suzanne has not been working on Osceola matters for a number of years since the Cindy Hardig regime, because I had to come back in because we were on the verge of being fired at that point, and I had to do the work necessary to calm that down, and I did. And ever since that point in time, Suzanne has done maybe a couple of things occasionally to look at old files to help me out. I mean, she hasn't been actively involved in school district work at all for a number of years, going back to Cindy Hardig. I generated this client in 1992 and introduced Suzanne to the practice of governmental law, and she became excellent at it. And then over time, she segued into being here more and more and more until the Cindy Hardig regime, and that. I don't want to go through all that old history, which was unpleasant. Then I'm bringing with me virtually all of the team that has been performing service for you, and I did that on purpose. And to answer your, I think one of the questions was, what happens if we don't bring the school board? It's a big firm, and they have plenty of work, and our resignation is irrevocable. So your team, Amy on the ESE side, and Tina on the tort defense side, and Cherish on the contract and real estate side, and two on the medical clinic side. All of that is at Greenspoon. We're there. So that you can't put that genie back in the bottle. I mean, you can imagine what it would be like having resigned to try. It just isn't going to happen. Those resignations are irrevocable, and it's a business decision. There is no way in this reality to do a smooth transition, because you would have two segments of the same law firm lobbying and jockeying for position. It would actually be much more disruptive to my client. It would be much more disruptive to this district if you had me give them, hey, I'm going to leave the firm in 90 days and I'd like to take the school board with me. Can we work together? Well, for those 90 days, it would be chaotic. It just isn't feasible. I don't do this all the time, but I've observed these issues over the years. I formed this firm in 1995, and by the way, this was a difficult decision. I mean, I've worked with Suzanne since 1995. I had to get beyond the emotional side, and I had to make a rational business decision. And the people I'm bringing with me had to get beyond the emotional side and make a rational business decision. It was not easy. And it's hard to talk about. I mean, my name was on the door, so that I made a business decision, and that decision is irrevocable. And I'm taking the team that is currently doing your work. There are a couple of people that I'm not bringing, and to address the point, yes, we're well aware. We know what matters are scheduled today. That's why we're delighted the meeting is early in the morning, because depending on what you do, I have people to call and to indicate who's going to cover what. Cherish is going to cover a charter matter. She's an expert at that. I'm an expert at charter schools. Tina and I are going to work on the tort stuff. You're going to see greater efficiency, I believe, as a result of that. Every matter today and here and after will be covered. I want to be very polite, and I want to be very careful. It is impossible to compare the degree of competence and depth and expertise in a 170-person law firm that handles huge matters internationally, in South America and all over the world. It's hard to compare that to my current platform. That is why I made the move. It's amazing the more I learned about the group that I've joined. And Cherish, I think, could talk about some of the software. I mean, some of the things they have there in terms of infrastructure will just result in much greater efficiency and much greater handling of your litigation matters and other matters that we have. So you're going to be covered, and I hope that people here are sophisticated enough to understand that when you have a senior attorney who's been responsible for you since 1992, January 1, my first week on the job, the Orlando Sentinel filed a sunshine lawsuit, and that was, so I remember that first week of 1992. I will make sure you're covered. You're going to be covered. You have unbelievable depth at this new firm, and they want to do everything they can to make this transition smooth. And while I've been representing you, I've handled some major matters for the city of Destin and the city of Pembroke Pines, and you didn't miss a beat. I've handled significant business matters, and that. Yes, I will do other work for other clients, but you're always going to be my biggest client. I can't, because I couldn't handle two of you. That is true. I personally could not handle two clients of this magnitude. So you will always be my biggest, most important client, but I will handle other things, and with my ability to manage competent counsel, you're not going to be jeopardized at all. Did I address every question? I was making notes, but I think I touched on everything.
Mr. Thacker, did that cover the questions and the concerns that you raised?
Yes.
Okay. Larry, the only thing that wasn't addressed that Clarence brought up is the name change in the contract.
Oh yeah, thank you for
going from indicating the name of the firm to just using the word firm.
And I spoke to Melba about that. I was in discussions right at that time, and I'm very sorry that the timing occurred that way. I did do that because I was talking to the Martyr Group, but it wasn't finalized. If I had come out and announced then, I would have been very much jeopardized. So I did make that change, but you've had my name on the contract since 1992, and if you go back to 1992, it was at that time Pohl, P-O-H-L, and Brown, and then it became Brown, Williams, and something. And then, so you've had different firm names over the years and then the Brown Garganese group had different names. It used to be Brown, Van Leuven, and Ward, or Brown, Ward, and Van Leuven, and Ward retired and Van Leuven went to D.C. So you've had multiple name changes. It's just that I've been remarkably stable for a number of years with the Brown Garganese name, but you've had, if you go back to 1992, multiple firm name changes. Thank you.
Mr. Thacker, does that satisfy your question on that item?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Melba?
Just for clarification, that is correct. Last night, Larry and I had a conversation in regards to that contract and how it was written previously and the way it was written for this particular contract, because I don't think any of us did take note of that. But I do have a question that I think is really important for all of us, and I understand that, Larry, you're taking several of your staff members, but my question and concern is what happens with other situations, and you are fully aware that I am in a situation that I will be going to some kind of a deposition or something in the next month or so. And these lawyers that you're taking with you are not at all involved with them. So my question is something similar to what Suzanne was saying, which is what happens when we are in a situation that has nothing to do with the current attorneys that you're taking with you? What happens then?
Yeah, either I will personally handle it, or the case you're referring to, I was involved a lot, as you know. I mean, even repeated emails to the opposing attorney saying she's going to be paid the same salary and she has her FMLA rights. Just ask for FMLA. You know, I was involved all along, and the firm that I'm going to, it'll either be me personally handling it or it'll be a specialist at that firm. They have 15 or 20 attorneys who specialize in HR law and FMLA and Title VII, and the depth is remarkable. And with my knowledge of the facts and my involvement, you'll be covered under the terms of the current legal services contract. So no, you know, I mean, another way to look at it is you're going to get shareholders and partners who normally bill in Miami at $400 an hour. They're going to come up here and do work for you at $170 an hour under your contract. And these are people that have achieved the highest pinnacle of success because they're shareholders in a large firm and they're in Miami. And but the team, I can't stress enough how entrepreneurial this large firm is. And there are lawyers who do nothing more in that firm than constantly approach me and say, our job is to make sure you have what you need. If you need paralegals, we will transfer them in. If you need partners to work on personnel issues, we'll transfer them in. Plus there's 40 lawyers in Orlando. So in any event, to answer your question, that particular any case of that type and that particular case will be well handled.
So I just want to make sure that there's no interruption of services.
Zero.
And there's no additional cost.
No additional cost. Same contract rate. And I think you're going to find greater efficiency.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Booth?
Yeah, I think earlier in the meeting, and I want to say I had the chance to speak with Mr. Brown as well last week. We had a long conversation, actually morphed into some history and some other things too, so it was a good conversation. But I agree with a lot of what Jay said right off the bat, and actually I share a lot of Clarence's concerns. I guess the one thing that makes this okay with me is this is a one-year contract. So we're talking about 11 months here. So with that being said, I'll make a motion that we accept this change. Mr. Brown
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So we'll recognize there's a motion by Mr. Booth with a second by Mr. Wheeler on, I guess, staying with Mr. Brown as our attorney and having the contract recognize that it's with his new law firm. Is there any other discussion, Board? Mr. Thacker?
Quick question, procedure. Since I'm on the phone, can I vote or not vote?
You
Yes.
can vote.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Hearing seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion
No.
does. Okay, the motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Board, that was our only item on the agenda, so at this time we'll stand adjourned.
Thank you very much.